that the German public starts to talk about this in the way that it deserves to be talked about. Because this is a decision that all of us Germans have to take. The question is, do we want to be part of this or not? And we have to have all the facts to make this decision. And therefore we can just urge whoever, for example, has the NATO report on this, maybe someone's listening or maybe someone in the audience knows someone. There are other reports that would be very, very helpful to get a full picture of this and to put more pressure on those people responsible for what has happened down there. Yes, the 9/11.
So some of you may have heard of this recently. We released over 500,000 over 500,000 text messages, pager messages that were intercepted between 3 a.m. New York time September 11 and 3 a.m. New York time September 12.
In 2001.
2001, yes. So those messages provide a totally objective and accurate snapshot into a form of communication that was happening at that time. That includes a lot of messages from Secret Service, it includes first responders, NYPD, doctors, and so on. But the meta context is also very interesting, that someone was intercepting the pager traffic for 4 major pager networks in the United States before September 11, because remember this is at 3 a.m. And across for the rest of the day. And when we released this, we seem to have invented a new form of political demonstration or political art, which is we released this in delayed real time. So we released it over a 24-hour period as it happened. And this helped people understand some of the content and the progression in what occurred. So those people who are interested in the 9/11 conspiracy theories, actually you can see how all this originated. You can see Condoleezza Rice calling off aborted missions. You can see people talking about bombs exploding or secondary explosions. You can see misreporting by the media, and you can see all this swirling around and some opportunism by the security state later on in that day. And it seems to me that that has produced the political moment that we have now. And this initial window, it gives you the sense of movement that has led to this sort of defining event of our time. For us, this was actually quite hard to release because so many people were interested in the material. But we actually, this is, believe it or not, this is the first really significant document that we've done where our anonymizing network didn't go down under the load.
Yes. Which is, we've been, some of you might be aware, we called for some support because we knew that we needed to handle a lot of data, which is about 4 terabytes worth of text messages. There was a lot of people that have been looking at these messages. This is just the traffic we produced or we handled within the first few days. But it gave us a feedback on how many people actually were discussing. And a lot of the people, even those people that criticized this publication, were still looking at it and following it over 24 hours. So even if you do not agree with, there's still an interest. So
we received 0 complaints from anyone who had any, 0 complaints from anyone who had in fact sent a pager message.
Yes, that's noteworthy.
So it's just like people hype up terrorism, people hype up privacy as well. So the real concerns are the people who are involved. Anyone who was involved didn't give a damn, or didn't give a damn enough to contact us.
Yes, yeah, that's true. So just to check, is that box still going around and everyone taking their pieces of paper? Okay, good, perfect. Okay, a last one from, as Julian said before, a long list that we published before, but this is something that at least to me personally is very important. We published a European strategy paper from the European Institute for Security Studies. Those of you who have not heard about it, please listen. This is a paper that is done by a European think tank that deals with European security policy. And these are the people that everyone in the EU listens to if it comes to these questions. And they have worked out what we need to do to address security in Europe until 2020, so within the next 11 years. And they come to the conclusion that we have 20% globalizers in this world, which are the first world countries and transnational corporations, and we have 80% localizers. And these localizers threaten our wealth because they're so poor, and they're not happy, and they're getting more and more unhappy. And this is why these people propose that we build up a European military and police unit to combat the poor in the world. And these people propose that we need to extract universal goods such as the rainforest from the control of the nation states they are located in. Because they say we need these resources as well, and we need to make sure that no one can get uncontrolled access to them. And they are proposing building this wall around Europe so no one can get in anymore, no one can swim over the sea or whatever. And this is all written in a very lengthy paper, I think 170 or 180 pages. And it's very detailed and very, very verbose. So it's a terrible read, but it shows how sick some of these people are that are planning the future of Europe and of the society that basically anyone in this room will be part of. And the question that we have to ask ourselves, similar maybe to Kunduz, is that with this information, do we give our silent consent? Is that like the world we imagine to live in? I guess we all know that we're exploiting the third world and that there's a lot of our wealth depends on this exploitation. But the question is, how much further can we push out this bill, or when is it time to maybe start considering how to pay that bill? What is the right step? So I'm not sure if I'm maybe the only person that sees this very critical, but it's something that we thought is important to mention again. It's one of these obscure reports that are so complicated and that are sort of very technical in the way they are written that few people have a look at them. And that's why unfortunately, a lot of the information that we publish sometimes gets lost because people just don't want to read 170 pages and they don't know anything about European defense strategy or whatever, so they're just skipping this and go back to something that's easier to comprehend. But nevertheless, this is really important. And I can, as with Kunduz, again only urge everyone to think about, is that the world that we want to live in the future?
So Daniel just mentioned that sometimes we have difficulty in people picking up material that seems to be complex. So my favorite example is a September 2008 US Special Forces Manual on Unconventional Warfare we released, several hundred pages. Now, it's written for intelligent people. It's written for special forces units who go into countries and try and overthrow the government of that country, or alternatively back up surrogate forces, paramilitaries, to suppress insurgencies. So US forces manual about how to create insurgencies or to suppress them. So it reads to me like Noam Chomsky times -1. This is not a book for fools. This is a book that talks about all the instruments of US national power. So the financial instrument of US national power, the military instrument of US national power, the intelligence instrument of US national power, the diplomatic instrument of US national power, and how all those can be brought together to a point to push a particular US policy, and talks about, yes, the IMF is a financial weapon of US national power. That's its terminology, a financial weapon. And that the USAID is also a financial weapon. So those documents do not get any media attention at all. That document, one related to it, even talks about how, despite the fact that it's the Geneva Conventions say the US forces cannot wear enemy uniforms behind governmental lines when they're doing one of these "we will create our insurgency," US policy says, in fact, that